What's going on there, second grade all-stars? Welcome back. And like always, guys, listen, we are so proud of you. Way to keep showing up. Way to keep learning. Way to keep growing your brains. Okay? All that hard work you're putting in is going to pay off. Now, what we're going to be talking about today, my friends, is we're going to be reading a story. And it's important while we read. You boys and girls are becoming amazing readers. Remembering what you read. Being able to talk about the stories that we read is so important. Sometimes we read a book and we read all the words and we do an amazing job. We don't make extremely fluent, very accurate, but then we get to the end of the story and we can't talk about it and we can't remember what happened. All right? We need, as we read, my friends, we need to make sure the most important piece is that we remember what's going on in the story. It's not reading the words, it's remembering what goes on in the story, being able to comprehend. That means remember what happens. Now, we definitely want to read the words correctly, but you can read all the words correctly. If you don't remember what happened, then we weren't doing our job as readers. So, we're going to read a fiction book today. And some things that we want to pay attention to when we're reading fiction books. We want to be able to talk about who's the main character. What's going on in the story? What's the problem? What's the obstacle that this character faces? And how do they solve it? How does the character react to this obstacle? And how do they solve this problem? Okay? So we're going to be reading piece by piece. It's a great story. I think you're really going to like it. And we're going to be talking about all of the things that I just described at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, my friends. And we will jump right in. Now, the illustrations on this story is beautiful as well. So really pay attention to the illustrations that are going on in the story. Piece by Piece, written by Stephanie Shaw. Once upon a time, a weaver tucked a memory into her collection basket. All day she gathered them up. The crunch of leaves, the springiness of moss, the leap and splash of a fish. At night, she wove the day's bounty into cloth. It was rich, exquisite, unique. Tell us, asked her children, tell us where this came from. The weaver held a piece of fabric to her nose. Ah, she smiled, the sweetness of a puppy. What else? The breath of a hot air balloon as it floats against the morning sky and the squish of mud between your toes. The weaver began to sew piece by piece. Every now and then the children playing among the bolts of cloth asked, tell us about this one. And of course, she did. When the garment was finished, she laid it in a box. The bodice was a sparkle of starlight, with a skirt full as a spring meadow. Along the edge was laced like the foam of an ocean wave. Tucked in the folds of the gown were treasures, some dragon scales, a pirate sash, and the red flash of a blackbird's wing. The weaver closed her eyes. She dreamed of all she could buy for her children with the money the dress would bring. Shoes of soft leather, loaves of thickly braided bread, sweet crisp apples, and the paper bags of warm roasted nuts. In the village the next day, she held the dress against her so a shopkeeper could see it. What's this? The shopkeeper asked, pointing to the shimmering top. Starlight and candle glow. I could never sell this, he replied. What absolute nonsense. I suggest you remove that part. So, the weaver returned home. She gently snipped at the threads that held the garment together. Piece by piece, pale and shimmering cloth fell to the floor. When the weaver returned to the shop, the shopkeeper frowned. What's all this? He asked, pointing to the skirt held before him. A day when gentle breeze sway the tall grass and wildflowers, she answered. Oh, that's all too much too much, the shopkeeper's wife chimed in. And what about that flounce at the edge? The kiss of sea as it reaches the shore. Well, we can't have any kissing, said the shopkeeper. That needs to go. So, the weaver returned home again. The children watched as piece by piece an indigo night fell to the floor. The coo of a dove, the juiciness of a tangerine, a bit of coral from a tropical reef, the glint of a saber, the scent of chocolate and cinnamon. I've done as he asked, the weaver said to herself. She slowly walked to the shop. The children ran ahead to the village fair, carrying a mysterious package. Now, what have you brought us? The shopkeeper peered over his glasses. His wife scowled. The wishes from a dandelion on a summer's day, she said the weaver. The whisper of fog rising from a lake, frost caught on a spider's web. He held the gauzy fabric up to the light. Bah, he replied, too small, too flimsy. No one has any use for this. But the weaver turned away and used it to catch her tears. As she left the shop, the children ran to her. Come and see what we made! At the village fair, there were displays of golden honey, bunches of lavender, and pyramids of brilliant fruits and vegetables. Through row after row and stall after stall, the children ran, pulling the weaver along. Finally, they came to where a crowd of people gathered around a quilt hanging between two trees. Rich, said a woman. Exquisite, said another. Unique, said a third. The shopkeeper, hearing the cheers from the square, pushed through the crowd. He did not bother to look at the quilt. His greedy eyes were on the people, asking where they might buy something so beautiful for themselves. He turned to the weaver and said, You must sell this to me, and as many more as you can weave. We'll make a fortune selling them from my shop. The weaver touched each piece of the quilt. The blueness of a robin's egg, the meringue of sky. She was sure she caught the sight of a dragon's scale. Never, she whispered. That night, the weaver smoothed the new quilt as she tucked the children into bed. Tell us, they said. The weaver moved her hand slowly across the pieces. She stopped when she came to the one as soft as a pony's nose. Once upon a time, she said. And here they are at the fair, piece by piece quilts, selling all her quilts. And that is the end of the story, my friends. So, what we want to do, let me switch over to this screen, is when we are, boys and girls, when we are recapping a story, we want to think about somebody, wanted, but, so, and then. All right, so let's start with this first part. Somebody. I will ask the question, you tell me it, and then I'll go over it with you. Somebody. So we start with, who's the main character in the story? Who's the main character? And who are the other supporting characters in the story? So if you said the weaver was the main character, you're absolutely correct. And then you have the shopkeeper and his wife and the children. Now, what does the main character want? What's this main character want throughout this whole story? You answer that out loud. So if you said that the weaver, she made these beautiful dresses and handkerchiefs and quilts, and she wanted to sell them, right? And she was using her skills to try and get money for her children. So her whole goal was to take it to the shopkeeper and sell it to the shopkeeper for money, all right, so that she could buy her children some nice things. But what was the problem, my friends? What was the problem in this story? Go ahead and say that out loud. Well, if you said that the problem was that every time that she brought these beautiful dresses or the beautiful handkerchief to the store owner, the shopkeeper, what did he say? He didn't want anything to do with it, right? Every single time that she brought a garment to him, he sent her away. He told her what he saw was wrong with it. He said, I can never sell these things. Get these out of here. You need to go make some changes. So what does the character do? Every time that she brings a new garment to him, what does she do? Well, if you said that she goes and she makes changes. So the shopkeeper was always making critiques and he was always saying what's wrong with it. So every single time she would go back and try and fix what was wrong or what the shopkeeper felt was wrong with the item that she made. So she was constantly taking apart these beautiful garments that she made. And how does it all end up? How's the story end? What happened? So if you said, boys and girls, that the weaver's children actually collected all of the garments that she cut off, all the pieces that she cut off of her beautiful garments, and then made this quilt that they took and they sold at the market, and that she learned from them that she can make quilts and sell them on their own. And she took those quilts and made a bunch of quilts and sell them on the market on her own so that she could have lots of money to buy the things for her children that she wanted in the beginning. Okay? So excellent job. And that's what we want to do, boys and girls. Every time that you're reading, you want to think about somebody wanted, but so then. Somebody. Who's the main character in your story? After every fiction story, you should be able to say, what's the main character? Want it. What do they want? What do they want in this story? And but what was the problem? What was the obstacle in fiction stories, boys and girls? In almost every fiction story that you're going to come to, you're going to come to a problem, an obstacle that your characters have to face. So, what does your character do in response? All right. How's your character look to solve this problem? What do they do? What's the solution? And then we want to be able to talk about how's the story end? What happens at the end of the story? How did they solve the problem or overcome their obstacle? So we want to think about all these things and be able to answer these when we finish the story. So that is our lesson, my friends. Wonderful job today. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome job. So super proud of you, boys and girls. Okay. So I want you to keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being amazing. We're so proud of you here. So have a great day.